Yes, those 170,000 Russians are part of a religious minority that has been persecuted in the last few years by the Russian authorities. In fact, it started with the banning of their religious material. That was the first step. The second step was that those who possessed at home such material were then prosecuted on the basis of a law called the anti-extremism law. That anti-extremism law is very problematic because extremism in the legislation in Russia does not involve at all the use of violence. But in this specific case of the religious minority, they were saying in their doctrines and their teachings that they were holding the truth with regard to existence of God, and that was considered extremism. And so at the end of a lot of arrests and fines that were imposed on a number of those people, the Supreme Court on the 20th of April decided to ban that group. So it means that any activity of the members of that group now can be considered extremist and prosecuted by the courts. The reason for such a ban is that there is a new political religious doctrine that has been put in place by President Putin. It is the concept of spiritual security. That sounds a bit strange to us, but it means that the identity of the Russian people is closely linked to the affiliation to the religion of the Orthodox Church. And those movements coming from abroad were perceived as a threat to the identity, but also to the values of the Russian people. And so that was the starting point. I said it was a religious political concept. Of course, the Orthodox Church is behind that concept as well. And this is the philosophy on which the persecution of foreign-based or religions coming from other countries are prosecuted and persecuted. Now, they have been sentenced to fines, heavy fines, when we know that the salaries are very low in Russia. It can correspond to several months of salary. But now the next step is to prosecute such people and to send them to prison. That has happened with the group that we mentioned at the beginning of this interview. But for other groups that are non-violent, that are absolutely peaceful, law-abiding, we have cases of imprisonment of such people.